Good afternoon. Thanks for being with us today. On the $1 billion Sustainable Future Program the governor has in the budget, that appears to me to basically encompass anything and everything that either Cap and Invest or the Climate Super Fund were designed to handle. Is that correct?
The focus that the governor has provided on the topic of the Sustainable Future Program would really be looking at the needs primarily in our buildings and transportation sectors, focusing on these large capital projects, as we had termed them, bondable, that are more significant infrastructure projects necessary to get after the two largest sources of emissions in our state. So that has been the directive that we have received, and we look forward to working with you to identify projects within those bounds.
So you're asking for $1 billion. Do you have any outline of proposed projects right now?
We certainly have ideas on the projects that might meet that need. This is an entire state ecosystem.
Well, you have no list of those for us.
We have concepts, certainly.
Concepts.
Well,
And we're
yes,
supposed to approve a
proposals.
budget with $1 billion of concepts that you're not even going to tell us what they are?
This is a process that, as I understand it, was intended to advance through her budget, and we look forward to discussing the specific projects. I'd imagine you may have suggestions as well.
And there will be no legislative review or approval of those projects once we approve this $1 billion fund. Is that correct, the way it's set up?
I can't speak to that, thank you.
Well, that's the way it reads to me. You just mentioned, I think, to Senator Walczak that you expect we need to increase dispatchable emission-free resources by 18 gigawatts to meet our needs. Can you explain the numbers to me? Because my understanding is we have capacity right now of somewhere in the mid-30 gigawatts available in New York on a good day. And the proposed outlook for demand under the CLCPA and the Climate Action Council is somewhere of 120 to 130 gigawatts. It's a lot bigger gap than 18. How we close that gap?
Certainly, the work that we conducted through our integration analysis did include a rough doubling of the capacity of our grid. I agree the peak demand in New York is around 30 gigawatts, but our installed capacity is greater than that. It is also the case that we saw this need both from the perspective of the electrification that we've discussed multiple times, but increasingly, of course, the load that we see coming upstate from the perspective of the good problem to have, which is economic development opportunities that we also want to serve, as well as the load potentially from electrolyzers to generate hydrogen, which is actually part of the NYSO's analysis as well. All that to say is we need to build many, many renewables and, to your point, a large number of dispatchable emissions-free resources to get from here to there.
Now, NYSO has demand response programs that when capacity is being maxed out and there's fear of brownouts and blackouts, they encourage customers to not use power, whether it's high-load user manufacturers, whatever, and they get paid for not using power at those times. My understanding is last week, NYSO implemented demand response programs in the middle of winter. A very cold week last week. Typically these have been implemented during the hot summer months when air conditioning is ramping up. Now we're seeing them already in the middle of winter. And we have concerns of meeting our demands and the reliability of the system going forward. So what's your response to having to implement a demand response program and the other warnings that NYSO has already given us about concerns of blackouts and brownouts going forward?
As I've said throughout this hearing, we look carefully and work carefully with the NYSO around the studies that are part of their RNA, and there is definitely contributions we make to the scenarios that they are evaluating. The current need is really one that they've identified in the near term in the New York City area. In the out years of 2030s, there may be a statewide need, and these are all things that we are planning for. I'd also note, as I had said with some pride, the solar contributions this summer reduced peak demand by 6%, saving New Yorkers $90 million So we have a lot of resources that we can be using to address the need for a reliable grid.